The NFL schedule has been released, and I got a friend that I'm going to discuss the Houston Texans schedule with. Is it easy? Is it hard? Do we have any breaks this year? Let's find out.
Big Sarge.
Welcome to another edition of the Texas Tailgate Talk, Season 3. Can y'all believe it? We're already in Season 3. I understand. You didn't believe it. You didn't think it was going to happen. I finally made it a podcast so you all can have Texas daily content every day, maybe? Definitely during the season. But once again, thank you for listening to the Texans Tailgate Talk right here with Big Sarge. Make sure you are following me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end. Follow me on the Tick and the Talk at Big Sarge Media. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel at Big Sarge Media. Follow me on Instagram at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. Because we do everything for the gram, and make sure you're following all my Texans content on BigSargeMedia.com. All right, look, I don't want to delay it any longer. This young man that I'm about to bring, look, I feel like I should do this. Coming to the stage, none other than Jonathan M. Alexander, Texas beat writer for the Houston Chronicle. Jonathan, what's going on, man?
I'm good. I like how that sounds. It got me feeling like I'm MJ in '95 when they introduce him. So I like that.
So wait, so next time you come on, what you telling me is I need to go
Exactly. Exactly. That should be my theme song right there.
Huh. From Charlotte, North Carolina.
I like that.
Jonathan M. Alexander.
And I'm out like nothing happened. Just come in, smooth Birdman hands.
Hey, bro, hold on, wait, time out. Why you move your head out like that? The only thing you was missing was licking your lips, LL Cool J.
Nah. I like that though. Yeah, you should. That should be my theme song when I come in.
For sure. We got to make it happen next time you come on, Jonathan. First of all, thank you for joining us here right here on the Texas Tailgate Talk. Before we even get started, before I even start talking about the Houston Texans schedule, man, oh man, Jonathan, you put out a heater the other day, man. Please tell the audience about that article that you wrote about Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, the two wide receivers that was drafted by the Houston Texans this year out of Iowa State.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was an interesting story, and interesting to see the Texans when they went into the draft. No one expected them to take both Iowa State wide receivers. There was always, the possibility that they could take one. But they ended up taking two, which is pretty rare in the NFL. I mean, the Chargers did it a few years ago when they took two TCU wide receivers, but it doesn't happen very often that two players who play the same position, are drafted to the same team. So, I dug into that a little bit, how it came to be, talked to Iowa State's coach, Matt Campbell, who told me he had a conversation with Nick Caserio the morning before day 2 of the draft. And he told me a little bit about his players and why Texans fans should be pretty excited about what they're getting in two young guys who I think could be early contributors for the Texans this upcoming season.
And Jonathan, I know, like I said, we're going to jump into the schedule in just a second, but like I said, man, I just wanted to highlight that article that you wrote about those two. Hey, those two young men, getting a chance to talk with them during rookie minicamp when we got an opportunity to speak with them and just see them go through, just learning, some of the things that they're going to be doing here coming up here soon when training camp starts. Jonathan, when you were doing that article and you were doing the background research, what did you find about these two young men that that would stick out because you've been covering this team for a very long time. You know what D'Amico looks for. You know what Nick Caserio looks for. Which, by the way, didn't you do an exclusive article about Nick Caserio as well?
I did do that before the draft.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to give me. You know what? I got to give me some exclusive this year. But Jonathan, what about those two young men makes them ready, available for the Houston Texans?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the history of Nick Casario, and even ever since D'Amico got there, the type of players that they look for. They look for players who obviously love football. Obviously players who are talented, but most of all, players who love football, who are leaders at their respective schools, and typically players who play for a Power Five conference. And Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins fit that, and anybody who I talked to, whether it was Matt Campbell or whether it was Paul Noah, their wide receivers coach, the things that they said about Jaden and Jalen was that they were two of the hardest workers on the team. They said Jaden was the type to stay after practice and catch balls in the jug machine, and then everybody else would follow. Jalen was the two-time team captain, one of the only two-time team captains in the school's history. And what Matt Campbell said about those guys is those guys were program changers. Everybody followed their line; they were the leaders. I thought it was also both interesting how both of them ate at the same time. Both of them had over 1,100 yards. So I think that went to show that they were unselfish. They didn't care who was going getting the majority of the balls. Both of them, were heavy targets in that Iowa State offense, and Matt Campbell expects them to do the same thing when they play for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, Jonathan, and like I said, I really appreciate that article, man. Make sure y'all go over to the HoustonChronicle.com, click on sports, and you will see that it's sports, and then click on Texans, and you'll see all the great work that Jonathan is doing. Not only Jonathan, but Sam. Sam is doing some excellent work over there as well. And I guess we can get this thing started, Jonathan. I know that I know that Wednesday was a very, very tough day for you. Not because the Houston Texans schedule came out, because your Golden State Warriors lost, and that made a lot of Houston Rockets fans proud. It made a lot of Houston Rocket fans hop on social media and make sure that they expressed their their gratitude and their love towards the Minnesota Timberwolves for putting your Golden State Warriors out. But Jonathan, how do you feel about the Houston Texans 2025 schedule?
That's funny. You know, people who don't know me, I'm a big Steph Curry fan. I'm born and raised in Charlotte. Steph Curry is from Charlotte. So, I rep anybody from Charlotte, and it was unfortunate he didn't play. But anyway, the Texans schedule, let's get to that. I took a look at it, and I'm looking at it now. I did my predictions. Um, to me, this schedule doesn't seem as difficult as it could have been. It's not as difficult as it was last year. You remember you had all those back-to-back tough games, and I think the NFL schedule makers did the Houston Texans a favor in spreading a lot of their tough games out. They had the late bye last year. They get an early bye this year. They play the Baltimore Ravens early in the season, then play the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills a little bit later, and then finish off with a fairly, I don't want to say soft, but easier schedule towards the end. So I think they're really set up. And when I did my predictions, I think they have a chance to have more wins than they had last year. And I'm not basing that off talent. I just think it's a favorable schedule for them.
When I look at the schedule as well, Jonathan, I said that the one thing that I was the one thing that I wasn't surprised by, but I said, wow, the NFL really looking out for the Houston Texans this season compared to last season. Because you remember when they started the season early, they were one of the first teams to start training camp early because they did have the Hall of Fame game. And so they started playing football way earlier than everyone else. And then, Jonathan, by the time you get to that back end of the schedule, they're playing what, 3 games in 11 days against the
Yeah.
Dolphins on the 15th, the Chiefs on the 21st, and then the Beyonce Bowl on the 25th versus the Baltimore Ravens. So to see the way that the schedule is set up and the way that they have these things spread out now, and they're not playing so many, back-to-back games, and not playing so many games in such a compressed time, I think that that's going to help the Houston Texans out a lot, and especially because I think the back end of the schedule, Jonathan, they get the majority of their home games. I think that they're on the road. I think what the first 8 weeks outside of the bye week in week 6, which I want to talk to you about in just a second. I think that they are on the road. They only have 2 home games. They get the bye week in week 6 during that 8 week stretch, and then the back end of the schedule is one of the things that's going to help them out a whole lot. But when you look at their schedule, is week 6 too early for a bye week for them? Because last year, what was it, week 12, week 13?
Yeah, I mean, you typically want to get those bye weeks kind of mid-season around week 8, week 9, just to break up the season. The Texans have theirs week 6, which is going to be early, it's going to be tough because a lot of the tougher teams are after that bye week, and you got to imagine that they could be limping into the playoffs with having no break since October. So just too much straight football. That's going to be tough on the body, but I do think they'd rather have it early than later. I think later, uh, I think the bye week oftentimes gives teams a chance to reset, and the Texans needed that earlier last year, and then got it super late, and then didn't have enough time to continue that trend. But I do think the schedule is favorable enough that they have a lot of the easier games on the back end, so they can potentially get some momentum heading into the playoffs if they're able to make it that far.
Yeah. And we'll get into that because that's something that I want to ask you about. I think that the week 6, to be honest with you, I think that the week 6 bye is perfect for them. And the reason why I think that it's perfect for them is because they're going to need to be playing some of their best football rolling into the playoffs. And I mean, I'll give my predictions when we give our predictions at the end of this show. But I feel like they're going to need to be playing consistent consistent football, and I don't think that they're going to need a break, especially when you have a first year offensive coordinator in Nick Caley, who is going to be calling the plays, and you want him to be able to build up a groove. And if he gets that groove going, and then he has to take a break, in on the back end of the season, now that may mess up some of the continuity and get them going again. I feel like that when you look at players like C.J. Stroud, when you look at players like Nico Collins, and then on the defensive side of the ball, when you have Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter. Those guys to me are rhythmic type players. And so they want to play football. You got guys that want to play football. And so I see them not having a break, but by the same token, some of those games after the bye week lends them, some of those primetime games lends them some time to be able to heal and recover from the week prior. But early on in the schedule, Jonathan, they play they got the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Jaguars, the Titans, and then the Ravens, and then they get into the bye week. Real quickly, before I talk about the Rams, because I need to talk to you about the Rams in length, but back-to-back games against the Jaguars and the Titans. I feel like if the Houston Texans can do what they need to do early and often, and I feel like one of the things that helped them last year was, them being able to take some type of lead in early on in the AFC South to dominate those games and to be able to take a lead, and that would help them later on the back end. What do you see from them playing in those back-to-back games against division opponents, and is that something that they can build off of?
Yeah, well, those two particular opponents obviously were not good last year. So ideally, you got two tough games to start the season between the Rams and the Buccaneers, two teams who were in the playoffs last year. And then you get the Jaguars and the Titans, with the Jaguars who, were one of the worst teams in football last year. It's always a tough matchup when Trevor Lawrence is playing, but they're still trying to figure out their way. And then the Titans have a new quarterback, rookie quarterback, and probably the worst team in football last year. It's going to take some time for Cam Ward to figure it out. So I think, that's a good time to kind of have some. It's going to be tough, but some tune-up games before that Baltimore Ravens game. And then I wanted to circle back to one of the points you made earlier. It is Nick Caley's first time calling plays. So that week 6 bye week could come in handy, because a lot of teams use the bye week as a chance to regroup and figure things out. Are the plays going well? Do they need to change up things? I think that is a kind of a perfect time for this particular team.
Jonathan, I think that that we have been very courteous throughout the first part of this show, and now it's going. I feel like I'm about to get flagrant. Jonathan,
Uh-huh.
the schedule makers looked at the Houston Texans and they looked at the Los Angeles Rams and they said, Now Nick Caley used to play under Sean McVay, and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans. Hey, you know what? Let's let them play in the first game. Let's just right out the gate let him play against his former team. Let us, build up some type of storyline coming out of that. But Jonathan, that's not the biggest thing. That's not the biggest story going into this. The Houston Texans got offensive line issues, Jonathan. And the last time Jared Verse, the edge rusher for the Rams, was up against Cam Robinson, he treated him like a turnstile at a New York subway. He just
Oof.
constantly just kept hopping over the turnstile, Jonathan, getting to the quarterback. You're starting off this season. You're starting off your very first game against a very good Los Angeles Rams defense, who also has a very good front seven, and you still have uncertainty on who's gonna play left tackle, who's gonna play right tackle, who's gonna play, who's the interior. I think that the only certain thing that we can hang our hat on is Titus Howard gonna play somewhere on the line. We know
Yeah.
Titus is gonna play. We don't
Yeah.
know where everybody else is gonna play, Jonathan. This is a bad matchup to me to start off the season.
Yeah, and in my predictions, I actually picked the Texans to lose that season opener. I think the Rams are a talented young team, and I think it'll be I think Kaylee may have some hiccups in that first game. But yeah, I agree. I do think there's a lot of uncertainty on the offensive line. I agree. Titus Howard is the only person that we know for certain, as long as he's healthy, is probably going to be starting on the offensive line. Everybody else, Cam Robinson struggled when he got traded to the Minnesota Vikings, and you pointed out that game versus Jared Verse. Um, Blake Fisher. I don't know if he's going to start at right tackle, but he struggled in the playoffs last year. Maybe you start Ariante Ursary at right tackle. I think there's just so much, and then the guards as well. Outside of maybe Titus playing left guard, who's playing right guard? Do you play Juice there? He did look good in the one or two games. I still don't know why the Texans decided to bench him for Shaq Mason in the playoffs, but that's another story for another day.
And Wilson and
Uh,
I was talking about that the other day.
yeah, so I think there's just so much uncertainty. I would never say for certain that the Texans are gonna bounce back until I see what the offensive line configuration is gonna look like, and until I see them have some successful games together. Because quite frankly, a lot of the players who are on this offensive line were cast-offs from other teams: Robinson, Lakin Tomlinson, Ed Ingram. Those guys weren't wanted from their previous teams, and I think it's asking a lot to put your faith in those guys, and act like everything's just gonna magically be good.
So early on too, especially when the only camaraderie that they're going to build is what with CJ is whatever with CJ and Joe Mixon. I think that a lot of people forget. They always talking about protecting the quarterback, but you also got to protect the running back as well. During the training camp is going to be the only camaraderie they're going to be able to build with them. And then, like I said, now you're coming in and you're playing against a very very good defense. So I'm just when I seen that, and I'd been talking about that on social media. I said if they play the Rams first, that's going to tell me a lot about where Cole Popovich, the new offensive line coach, where he is, as far as making sure that things happen. And it's Nick Caley's first game calling plays. Like Jonathan, I think that that's a lot, and I think that I would have the Houston Texans winning that game only because I feel like the defense can make a older Matt Stafford, an older Matt Stafford have to find his way, and I don't think that he's comfortable doing that anymore. I mean, Pika Nakua, who is going to be lined up either against Derek Stingley, All Pro, or Kamar Lassiter, the future All Pro. And so I just feel like the defense will come away with it. I don't feel like it's going to be a high scoring game. But Jonathan, when I seen it, I'm just saying to myself, that's a very bad matchup for a team who doesn't know what they're going to do as far as offensive line is concerned. Moving on, Jonathan, did the Texans deserve more or less primetime games? They got a total of 4.
Yeah, I thought the 4 primetime games they got was pretty was good for what they achieved last year. They're still one of the top AFC teams, even though they didn't perform well in those primetime games. But I thought 4 is usually like around the average, and I thought the Texans that was good for them. My argument is against some of the teams who got more,
Yeah,
like like the Falcons
the
and
Dolphins,
the Dolphins. Like
the
don't
49ers.
49ers. Don't nobody want to see those teams next
Right.
year. And maybe you place the Ravens who didn't get many primetime games in that slot. I'd much rather see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry
Hey,
than
wait,
those
Jonathan.
guys.
Jonathan, real quickly, side note. They gave the Dolphins, the Falcons, the 49ers 5, and didn't give any to the Tennessee Titans, who has the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and Cam Robinson at quarterback. They didn't give none to the Cleveland Browns. And I think there's another team that didn't get, the New Orleans Saints. I mean, nobody really wants to see the Aints anyway. Hey, I know they're going to kill me for saying that. But I just had to throw that in there right quick. I was like, you're giving these games to these teams, and this team doesn't even get 1.
Yeah, the NFL schedule makers don't give any breaks to any teams that did not do well the previous year, which was evident by how they how many primetime games they gave the Texans in that 2023 season. They didn't give
Yeah,
them any.
yeah,
And so they don't reward teams for being for losing. And I think that's why. Having said that, I still don't understand why the Falcons, the 49ers, and the Dolphins
yeah,
got all those primetime games. But, I'm not the one making the decisions.
for sure. And so you feel like the Houston Texans, and I like the fact that they do have 4 games. I feel like it's one of those things where they said, okay, we seen what they're capable of, and I feel like the Houston Texans, with the star talent that they have on the team, they're a draw. Like, people are going to want to watch CJ. People want to watch Will. People want to watch Nico, Joe Mixon, and you know, people want to see, hey, how does Aziz bounce back, this year, coming back off of injuries that he sustained throughout last season, and the suspension that he went through, where his mindset at, just using him as an example. Hey, can Derek Stingley come in and be the shutdown corner that he was last season? So I think 4 what was pretty good. What I really liked is what we talked about earlier. I like that they spread them out. They're, I know for us it's going to be different. Us, being in Seattle on a Monday night, the
Yeah.
game doesn't start till what, 9 o'clock, and so 9 o'clock what, Central Time, and so we're going to be out there trying to go through different types of time zones. But I do like the fact that they gave them 4 primetime games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, more opportunities, for them to, showcase that they weren't the team that they showed at that Christmas Day game
Yeah.
on Netflix or against the Jets
In
on
front of
that Thursday
Beyonce
night.
too. How you get
Yeah,
embarrassed 31-2 in front of Beyonce?
yeah,
Not
that was and I think that was why the NFL schedule makers didn't make this year's game versus the Baltimore Ravens a primetime game because they were like, hey, obviously the Ravens got the Texans number. But yeah, so it'll be an opportunity for the Texans to show what they're actually made of, and they don't just lay down in prime time. So 4 is a good number for them, and if they win, they'll get more next year.
What is the toughest part of this schedule for you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it's towards the latter end when they start to face week 12. It starts with the Buffalo Bills and then 2 road games, one versus the Colts, one versus the Chiefs. Obviously the Bills and the Chiefs are among the most talented teams in the AFC. You got the Colts on the road, which is always a tough game that seems to come down to the end. I think both were one possession last year, so it'll probably be the same. So I think that's their toughest stretch. If they can get past that stretch, winning at least one of them, maybe 2. Ideally, it'd be 2. Then I think they're in good shape, but they can't lose all 3 of those games.
Before you give me your predictions, let me, your overall prediction. Let me ask you a question about the AFC South.
Mhm.
Where do you see the Texans finishing in the AFC South because I'm gonna give them. I'll tell you what I think. I do believe that they're going to win the AFC South again. I do believe that they have enough talent on that team, and I do believe that they'll be able to work out all the kinks that they're going to have early on in the season to be able to repeat for the what the I mean not repeat, but be 3-time AFC South champions. My only problem is, Jonathan, the Indianapolis Colts. And the reason why I say the Indianapolis Colts is because if Anthony Richardson starts, right? If Anthony Richardson starts, one of a young quarterback's favorite target, one of the young struggling quarterback's favorite target is tight end. And the Indianapolis Colts went out and they got a tight end in the draft who can play, who I feel like is going to be what's the Raiders tight end's name that was really good this past season? I can't his
Yeah.
his name slips my mind right now. I can't think of it, but I feel like that they got that type of tight end coming into this season to go along with that running game that they already had. And at some point in time,
Yeah. Brock
uh,
Bowers.
yeah, and at some point in time, Jonathan, they're going to have to. Anthony Richardson is going to get it together. I don't think that he's going to struggle forever, and I feel like that's the one team that I can see giving the Texans some type of trouble. I don't think it's going to be the Jaguars. I just don't believe in them. And with that conundrum that they have going on down there, hey, is Travis Hunter a wide receiver? Or is Travis Hunter a cornerback? I mean, you're going to have to figure it out. He can't go both ways in the NFL. It's just impossible for him to play 17 games going both ways. So you're going to have to figure it out. And if you're going to make him a wide receiver, then he's going up against Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley Jr. 2 times, 2 times a year. And so I don't believe in the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't believe in the Tennessee Titans, but I think the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan, look, like in the immortal words of the great Negro poet, former NFL player Indy Kalu, am I on something or on to something?
I think that the rest of the AFC South is going to be better than they were last year, but I don't have enough faith in Anthony Richardson that I would think that they would truly threaten the Houston Texans. Like, what did they finish? 8-9, 8-9 last year, or 7-10? I think they'll win probably one more game because I think Tyler Warren does give them does boost their offense. Obviously, a lot of their stars are young. Jonathan Taylor is good. Um, their wide receivers are going to get better. But I'm just not certain that Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, and I'm not certain that he'll figure it out. His accuracy, I think his accuracy issues are diabolical. I think eventually they'll go to Daniel Jones, and I don't know if that's going to work out either. But having said that, I do think the Jaguars are a little bit better if they can remain healthy. And I think the Titans are a little bit better with Cam Moore. I just don't think any of those teams will truly threaten the Texans' reign as AFC South champions. And I think Texans gonna win the AFC South again.
Do you have the confidence in the Texans because of their offense or because of their defense?
Oh, their defense is legit, and I think they'll be great again this year. I think they've improved certainly by adding CJ Gardner Johnson. Offense, I have a ton of questions about, and I won't say that they're good until I see them play on the field.
Yeah. I think that I have a ton of belief in the Houston Texans defense, and like I say, I don't think that I don't think that any other team in the AFC South is going to stop them from claiming that title. The Texans from claiming that title. I just think that it'll be the Indianapolis Colts. I feel like will give them the trouble. But for as much as I said that the tight end that they draft Tyler Warren right out of Penn State,
Right, correct.
yeah, the as much as I like Tyler Warren and as much as I think that he's going to help them out a lot, I also feel like with Jalen Petrie coming back and him playing that nickel corner position, and when you have CJ Garner Johnson, a player who's not afraid to come downhill, not afraid to hold a tight end if he has to, I think that's going to help them out a lot. All right, what is your predictions, Jonathan?
I got the Texans finishing 11-6. I think they'll win the AFC South, and I think they'll lock it up before end of week 18 so they can rest their starters.
Oh wow. Okay. So now, shoot, I got to put you on the spot. I got to. I mean, it wouldn't look. It wouldn't be me if I didn't put you on the spot. I ain't gonna do you like I would do DJ if he was on here. But all right, Jonathan, because I got to look. I just got to see where these 11 wins are coming from. I'm only asking. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just need
Yeah.
to know. Okay, so I'm gonna put the W and the L right here. Win loss column. Let's go. Week 1 against the Rams.
L.
Week 2 against the Buccaneers.
Think they win that one.
Jaguars.
Win.
Titans.
Win.
Ravens.
Loss.
Whoa. I think this is the year they get it done.
I don't.
I think this is the year. I think that this is the year that they finally figure it out. This is the year that they finally figure it out and they beat the Ravens. I just like Lamar Jackson can't keep doing this to them over and over and over again.
I think he has a psychological hold on them. I think I think go. I remember talking to some people, and they were confident that they could beat the Chiefs, but they were not confident that if they rematched the Ravens, this was before we knew who they were going to play in the playoffs. They were confident that if they play the Chiefs, they could win, but they were not confident that if they played the Ravens, they were going to win. So I think there's some kind of psychological hold the Ravens got on the Texans.
Do you think it may be because of the interior defensive line position? They may not be able to hold up against Derrick Henry.
Um, I mean, I just think they have so many threats on offense. I think that they outcoached them in that one game. They just did so many things better than them. And to win 31-2, that's very deflating.
That
And
is.
that is that is hurtful. And they're gonna have that in the back of their minds.
Yeah. Seahawks.
Win.
49ers.
I have them losing.
Losing. I'm gonna put that
Yeah.
down, but
And
losing to
not
the
and not
49ers.
and not and not because they're a worse team. I just think every now and then we see the Texans have some type of flop type of game like they had against the
Do
Jets. And I
not
think
bring up the New York Jets.
and then the Jets beat them 2 times in a row. Robert Sala's defense, for some reason, just got a hold on the Texans offense. So
2 times. I don't know, man. Look, this is when you need Bobby to break down that Shanahan offense, right?
yeah,
I think that
so
that's going. So my only thing is who's playing quarterback for. If it's Brock Purdy, I still feel like the Houston Texans can make Brock Purdy look like an average quarterback. Their defense, but
I think he's smart enough not to make mistakes. And then you add on the fact that they get Christian McCaffrey back. I think they're going to be a multi-dimensional team who's probably going to rely on Christian McCaffrey to make plays.
yeah, but if you so between Christian McCaffrey, you're looking at Christian McCaffrey, you're looking at George Kittle and Debo Samuels is no longer there. But what's the other one's name? Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk, yeah,
Let's see if he can bounce back from injury. I think that's going to be an interesting game. I believe that the Houston Texans can win that game. Um, Broncos.
I think I have them losing that game.
That's an interesting game. That's
I
good.
think I think it's a toss-up, but I think the Broncos defense was so elite last year, and I picked the Texans to lose that one.
Man, and that's exactly what I was going to say, man, because you're looking at Patrick Surtain on one side and you're looking at Derek Stingley Jr. on the other side, but then it's just all the other intangibles that the Denver Broncos have. And plus, Bo Nix can step his game up when he needs to. And so I gotta agree with you on that. Jaguars,
Win,
Titans,
win.
Bills.
I gave them a loss. I think the Bills gonna get their get back. I think it'll be a tight game, but I got the Bills winning.
Colts,
I got the Texans winning.
Chiefs.
I got the Texans winning this game. I
Now
got
wait,
them front.
hold on. Wait. You got them losing to Baltimore, but you
Mhm.
got them winning against the Chiefs?
Yeah, like I told you, I think they had so much confidence that they could beat the Chiefs, and they were missing so many players that they're not afraid of the Chiefs. The Baltimore is another story though. So that and I think they'll get over the hump and beating the Chiefs this year.
I got them beating. I got the Texans beating both of them. I think it's
Okay.
time, Jonathan. I
If
just
they
think
beat
it's
both of them
time
teams,
to take that next step. And what the Houston Texans, by the time they play the Chiefs, though, by the time they get to the Chiefs, those rookie wide receivers should have been already and got acclimated to stepping up and doing what they need to do in order to help CJ win. And so, okay, Cardinals.
Can you hear me? My headphones. One of my
Yeah, I can hear
headphones
you.
died. Okay,
I can
cool.
see you.
Cardinals. Yeah, I think they'll beat the Cardinals.
Okay, Raiders.
Raiders. I think they'll beat the Raiders.
I'm interested to see what Genty's going to do, but I don't even know they got quarterback issues over there as well, and I don't trust Pete Carroll. Never. Chargers
I think they'll beat the Chargers,
and the Colts.
and I think they'll lose to the Colts because they'll rest the starters that week.
Oh, you think they'll be in position?
Yes,
Oh, wow, Jonathan. All right. I mean, look, you say that you have them going 11-6, correct?
correct.
All right, I'm writing this down because I'm gonna get predictions from our whole little group. You got them going 11-6. You don't want to know what I have them going, do
What,
you?
12 and 5 or
12 and
13,
5.
13. Okay.
No, not no, no. The Texans have not improved to a 13-win team just yet.
That's funny.
Now, hey, look, I reserve the right to change that coming out of training camp if I see what
Yeah.
I need to see. But right now, I got them going 12-5 only because I think that this is the year that one of those games they're going to drop that they're not going to lose, but I feel like they're going to get one or two games that they're supposed to win. Like I feel like they can get, I feel like they can get a game. It's like let's just use the Bills for example. I feel like they can get a game against the Bills, but Jonathan, all this depends on if they can stay healthy or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Health is a big thing.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, look, I thank you for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate you coming on Texans Tailgate Talk. Please tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, y'all can find me on X at JONM Alexander, John M. Alexander. Or you can find all my stories on Houston Chronicle .com/sports/Texans, and sign up for my newsletter, Texans Insider Newsletter. You can Google that and it'll show up right up first thing on Google.
Can we get a little small insight on what you're working on for Sunday, or is that something you want to keep under wraps?
I'm not working on anything big this Sunday. Working on some bigger summer stories,
Yeah.
but nothing chilling this Sunday.
When do you take a vacation? When does Jonathan M. Alexander take a vacation? And when you do take a vacation, do you disconnect from everything?
Yeah, I usually take vacation like around July. Fortunately, the Texans they got the mini camp ends on the 12th, so I'll take some days off in between late July, late June, early July, and when I am on vacation, I disconnect. I don't check Twitter. I don't answer phone calls. I just let everybody else handle it. You got to. That's the only way to enjoy it.
Exactly, man. And I really appreciate you coming on Texas Tailgate Talk. Let me say this right here, man. I really appreciate your work. I really appreciate your work ethic. I really appreciate you being one of the guys on the beat who is always willing and available to talk. And man, I getting to know you. I thought you was gonna change after you cut the braids, but you didn't. What is it? The braids?
That's crazy.
but you didn't, man. And like I said, I really appreciate you, man. And I look forward to seeing you here sometime soon. I will get back to our group chat because I do need to talk to you about Draymond Green. The guy that you championed so much who just disappeared. Draymond Green disappeared. I'm sorry, I gotta take my shots right here while we're on air. Draymond Green. I'm sorry. Hey, look, if this was me and Cody talking, I'd already hung up. But
That's fine.
Draymond Green disappeared, Jonathan. Jimmy Butler disappeared. Y'all was depending on Kaminga, who was gonna get his shot regard. Hey, look, real quickly, Kaminga ain't nothing but the Golden State Warriors version of Cam Whitmore for the Rockets, right?
Yeah, I don't understand Kaminga up and down. I don't understand him. Draymond, we could talk about that a little bit later. I got some stuff to tell you, but it's all right. Steph wasn't there, and obviously Steph's so much of our team, so
Yeah, I knew
I
you.
I can't say we'll come back because we old. So
Yeah. Jimmy got. Hey, look. Hey, let me take a drink of coffee for Jimmy because you know he got his own coffee company.
yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. Man, I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me.
All
So
right, next. All right. Once again, I want to thank Jonathan M. Alexander, Texans beat writer for the Houston Chronicle, for coming on today's show. Really appreciate that. Thank you all for tuning in to the Texans Tailgate Talk. Make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. Follow me on the Tick and the Talk at Big Sarge Media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Big Sarge Media. Subscribe to the Texans Tailgate Talk podcast. Yeah, I'm back, baby. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. Because you know we do everything for the gram. I really appreciate you all. Thank you for taking your time, spending time with me right here on Texans Tailgate Talk. Big Sarge, I'm out.
Big Sarge.